Welcome back, everybody. So, guys, today we got a account coaching session for a returning player, Zixra. Hopefully, I pronounced the name correctly. But today we're going to dive into some different areas, give him some guidance on how he can continue progressing his account, and hopefully help some of you guys out watching the video. In case you're, struggling with Hydra, if you're struggling with getting through hard mode dungeons, if you're struggling with general progression and really knowing where to go or how to actually go there. So, first thing I want to do is start off with the account screenshot, the snapshot in time. Actually, no. This one's gonna be a little bit different. Before we start this, I want to talk about the message that the question that he left in the account takeover request form. So these are the stages, and he's a returning player. I was mainly focusing on these last fusions and events, very smart, but don't really have nice setups besides Clan Boss. The Clan Boss is Bad Eater with Bellinor. I also have a lot of champions, and I feel like I've been gearing them up randomly instead of focusing on certain areas. I think it's a very common problem. What I would like is a general coaching to help me know, what does my account need? How should I focus champions for Hydra since I don't really have actual teams? Shogun, Sand Devil. So Iron Twins, the keeps. Honestly, the keeps are something I really don't dive into because, to be honest, you don't farm them that much. You farm them a decent amount, like a day or two, and then you don't touch them for a long time. Unless you're a massive Kraken or Whale who has tons of legendary champions you need to ascend, I feel like I don't really farm them that often. Either way, or if you're very early in mid-game where you really need the potions. But then we have Minotaur 15. Minotaur 15, I really just recommend soloing that, soloing with a champion who can do it. He has Ithos, which I believe is more than capable of soloing Minotaur. But if not Ithos, we would like to have a Sun Wukong, though he is a returning player. So unfortunately, he missed the Sun Wukong. But either way, having a champion in here to solo that is really the best way, because what you can do is you can have this champion. Septimus can do it, actually. Ithos, I believe, can do it as well. Let's see who's built pretty well. Ithos may actually be able to do it. Let's test this out real quick. But let's say you want to get masteries on your champion who is ideally 5-star, like just working up through stuff. So he has masteries already. But say you want masteries on King Galkabar. Well, King Galkabar is ideally level 1, 5-star. So he has a lot of leveling left to do. So if you take these champions through here, I actually literally can't find Galkabar. We'll just make believe for a second. Pretend this is like a brand new S-tier legendary champion, and you want to get his masteries done. What you're going to do is throw him in there at level 1, have your champion solo through Minotaur, and then basically you're leveling the champion, you're getting silver, and you're getting mastery done all at the same time. So it's really the most efficient way to do Minotaur, period. It takes about 2,000 energy, I believe, to get your masteries from 0 to finished, and you can rank the champion up. You'll get to about level 50, I think, or 55. At 6-star, if you rank the champion up from 5-star to 6-star during this process. So it's a very, very efficient way to get your champion leveled up, get some silver along the way, and go ahead and fill out your champion's masteries. And if you have a relatively fast champion, Ithos should be able to do it, but if not, Septimus, like I said, could definitely do it. And if you have to, you can just throw in 2 champions, duo it instead, and have your other champions farming. Now, the best way to do it is if you had like 4 champions you're working for masteries. Assume these are all level 1s at 5-star. With no masteries, you run them all through, and now you're going to get all these champions to 60, all these champions masteries done, a lot of silver, and it's going to cost you about 10,000 energy to finish this out. You don't got to do it in one day, though. You can do it over time. But that's Minotaur. That's my recommendations there. Any champions with AoE skills with some survivability are usually very good. Baron can probably do it. His Septimus, the reason why I say he can do it is because of the machine gun A1. So his A1, whenever it kills somebody, it hits another enemy. So he should use the A1 on the wave 1 and wave 2. Knock them all down. You could even use the presets and just turn it off for turn off the A2 for wave 1 and wave 2, and then just use the A2 on the actual boss. But I don't want to dive into Minotaur too much because it's kind of simple once you actually start diving into it and start going with it. I actually have my Wukong doing Minotaur. Well, I should be doing it right now because I got to work on my Kaimar. Either way, let's go into the next question that he has. So Minotaur, Ice Golem, 25 normals, where he's at. Spider, Dragon, Fire Knight, Sand Devil, Shogun. These are all of his stages. So let's go ahead and jump over to the snapshot in time of his account. This is what I like to always do for players when I do the account coaching stuff. This is I'll probably fill out this more later on, but I haven't done it fully yet. So coming up here, I think I said so 20 times now. My goodness. But here we go. Zixra, 8.1 million player power, 98 legendary champions, a level 100 account, 140 rank 6 champions. So his dungeons. These are all of his dungeon times. I'm not going to go over that. There's no real reason to. Faction Wars, he got Lydia, but he's not done with it. So the new factions are the ones he's working on. Shadowkin, Sylvan Watchers makes sense for a returning player, right? That the returning player, been gone for a while, doesn't have this. Also doesn't have Ninja, unfortunately. So it seems like he left during the times of the really good champs. So no Artak, no Ninja, unfortunately no Wukong. Man, that's That's rough. So misses out on some of the best champs that we've gotten for free. Either way, though, we're not going to dwell on the past. We're going to look towards what's in the future. Okay, he does have Ultimate Death Knight. Maybe he does have Ninja. Nope, no Ninja. Artak, maybe? No Artak, unfortunately. Either way, let's go into the next thing. What's next is the Arena. So currently in Gold 4, which is something I talk about all the time, guys. It doesn't matter if you're in Gold 4, if you're in Gold 5. I mean, the difference between these are so small. What are you getting different? Well, you're getting an extra 2% bonus in all areas. That's like nothing. So if you can get into Gold 5, great. But if you're working on your Great Hall, which is what you should be doing, this account is currently Great Hall 133. So we definitely want some Great Hall progress. So just chill where it's easy matches for you. So we hit the refresh button here. We got some one-man defenses. We got one-man defense. We have other defenses that we can actually farm pretty easily. And we just hang out in Gold 4, work in Gold 5. We leave our one-man defense up the entire week. Not a troll one-man defense, like something kind of easy. No Paragons or Mortus, none of that annoying stuff that people just skip anyways most of the time. But something that people can click on and actually beat. Now, if you don't want to drop super fast, you could leave it as like a one-man defense with Wukong. So then players who are super low can't farm you, but players who, have somewhat of a decent speed team, they can farm you pretty quickly. So keep that in mind. You can kind of have the balance there, but I really prefer having one-man defenses as farming up the Great Hall, because unless you're pushing Plat, there's really no reason to be even pushing up into Platinum Arena, because it just really hampers your ability to actually farm your Great Hall medals. So as far as Great Hall medals go, he's doing pretty well. I mean, 133 gets accuracy filled out, crit damage is done, working towards resistance. He has the main core finished out. These ones over here, these are just some shenanigans that distract you. HP is good, defense is good, and then attack is basically useless except for your attack-based damage dealers. Everybody else, it's useless basically. So as far as your missions, you want to focus on those. If your missions say to upgrade it, then go ahead and upgrade it. But if not, don't worry about it. So obviously focus on missions. I'm going to add that as a little note down at the bottom. The main focus today is going to be on Hydra and Dungeon specifically. So we'll come down here real quick and add, actually towards the top, focus on missions, which he's doing a good job at that, but it's always a good reminder. Basically, missions are a fantastic way just getting handheld progress through the game. You don't know where to go to your missions. Figure out what to do. Use this to guide you through the game. Work on the Marius missions, work on the Ramen 2 missions, and you'll really be in a good spot. So up next, dang it, I said so again. Man, oh man, I gotta watch myself on that one. Let's see. So Doom Tower. I'm noticing it now, so I'm gonna keep saying it. I bet. All right, guys, I'm having my own mental warfare over here. Doom Tower. No and no. Hasn't finished the Doom Towers completely. He probably has finished most of the waves, but the hard mode. Okay, normal he has finished. Hard mode he has not. So yes on the normal, no on the hard mode. For the fragments, these are what we got going on. For the general account suggestions, this is what I have. So since he left the game, there was probably no Hell Hades Optimizer back then. Hell Hades Optimizer is one of the best inventions for the community. Big shout out to him and his team. But the Optimizer basically provides you an idea for teams. If you don't know what champions to use in, say, Iron Twins, well, you're going to download the Hell Hades Optimizer. Just go to hellhades.com. Come down here to the bottom. You don't have to come down to the bottom of the game. It doesn't matter. But we're going to go over here. You're doing stage 15 of Iron Twins right now, and you have a team. But if you wanted to have a different idea for teams, I'm not really sure why you had that as a question, because you seem to be doing well on it. But maybe you're struggling on different affinities. But let's say stage 15, Void Affinity. Well, these are the teams that are being used in the Optimizer. Now, one thing I like to do is always exclude manual teams. I don't want to have a manual Iron Twins team. I don't want to have manual anything, actually. And then you're going to go to number of battles, go to 100. I want it to be consistent. And success rate, I want it to be successful. So we'll go like 97% success rate. 96% is fine as well. So you'll see these teams right here. This has 6.3 thousand battles logged, 99% success rate. This is a beautiful team. So come in here, look at these teams. This is going to work on every single affinity. So you have Roshkar, Geo, 3 Painkeepers. Very simple team. I use this team for a long time, but this team is one worth building. It'll go literally every affinity. Your team is probably pretty good. It may just need to be a little bit more tanky. But coming into the Optimizer and seeing that is going to give you really good ideas for your teams in general. Iron Twins is worth doing. I think his account makes sense for it to do it. I mean, this account is pretty far in the game, especially for taking time off. So definitely come in here and work towards Iron Twins, because it gives you the essences. And then on Sundays, buy the extra keys, because on Sundays you get double rewards. So on Sundays, make sure you're doing as much as you can. Every other day of the week, depends on if you spend money in the game or not. It may not be worth buying the extra keys each day, but it is definitely worth doing it for your 6 keys per day. For the keeps, just jump in there and do that. I mean, Really not a whole lot to this. Honestly, you have a pretty good team for clearing this stuff. Basically, you have Kaimar plus Yumiko and Seer. So, like, you have just resets on every wave. This could be a Siphi or a Duchess if you have a Duchess, but basically just more buffs. Your Seer nukes everybody. You have the decreased defense and weaken from Lydia, more buffs from Lydia. Your Duchess is in the first place. That's literally what my team is. It's just nuke wave 1, Kaimar or Yumiko reset wave 2, and then Kaimar or Yumiko reset wave 3. Your potion keeps now like less than a minute, probably less than 45 seconds. Easy peasy, not a problem in the world. Plenty of buffs from Duchess. Get Seer up to 6-star Crushing Rend soon, which is where the Iron Twins comes into play, or just buying Soul Stones if you spend money. It takes a while, but she's definitely worth getting into your wish list, which I'll talk about in just a minute. Definitely get her into Savage gear, all that kind of stuff, which once again, I'll be talking about a little bit later on because defense ignore on Seer is so important. Make sure you don't make the key mistake, you guys watching, of making your Seer 70% crit rate, because her crit rate buff, in fact, does not stay on her when she does the nuke. It does not count towards her actual crit rate. Her buffs all get stripped and then they are used. They're not attributing to her actual stats other than boosting her damage because it does more based on how many buffs are removed. Coming in here, I was going to talk about, okay, the wish list from the Soul Stones. So wish list, you have some good champs here. I'd honestly put Seer here. I would drop Urogrim. I'm going to do that for you because I think Urogrim is not usable in your account, basically. You have no real use for him. Geomancer makes sense. Shemale makes sense. For these two at the bottom, personally, Renegade, with where you are in the account, I don't think it's needed. I'm going to drop her, and then Fellhound. You could do that. You'll see this video, so you can make this change if you want. But in my opinion, it's best if you only have one champion here, because I would rather have an 8x chance at Coldheart versus an 8x chance at Coldheart, Fellhound, or Renegade, because Coldheart's a champion you're going to use all the time. She's a game-changing champion as far as higher blessings for things like Shogun. It's really needed to have higher blessings. Fellhound can farm campaign at a low... He needs no blessings. I used him for campaign for a long time with no blessings. You're not even using him for campaign. For Renegade, you got Yumiko. You don't really need your Renegade anyways, but if you do need her, you probably can get the blessings from somewhere else, or you can just not really worry about it. You have a 3-star one already. I would definitely recommend dropping her. And then as far as the legendaries, I think your altar for legendaries is good. Siphi, Archer, and Duchess, hey, those are all great. Depending on where your account's at, those may be your most needed, but that's completely up to you. I think those are all very solid options there. Next up, we have the different teams from the optimizer. I'm going to talk about that more in a little while. The gearing section of this takeover sheet. Our current setup for the gear is 610 6-star pieces, 462 5-star. Now, my philosophy, I guess, with 5 and 6-star pieces of gear is you want more 6-star than 5-star. You eventually want as few 5-star as possible. But with so many unique sets like Stone Skin, like Merciless, like Slayer, 5-star gear isn't just strictly come in here, in my opinion, and get rid of all of it, because there are some pieces in those sets that could be just decent enough to keep. Now, the top row pieces are less impactful than the bottom row. The reason why I say that is because the bottom row, let's compare a 5-star crit damage glove real quick to a 6-star crit damage glove. This gives me 65% crit damage versus a 6-star crit damage glove is going to give me, you guys already know it, let's see it, 80% crit damage. So we're looking for crit damage, which is a damage dealer build. So unless this is a very well-rolled 5-star glove with like legendary and a good set, the likelihood of you keeping this and being good for your champions is very, very low. Whereas in the top row pieces, if you have a piece you're looking for speed on, and you just really need to finish out the set, for example, and it's a 5-star, well, this one has a double roll speed with 14 speed. Now, if you get double roll in 6-star, it's quite a bit more, but if you need to finish out a set, it's worth keeping that. So, I mean, that's 18, so it's a 4-speed difference in the two pieces, and the glyphs can be higher on a 6-star piece as well. But if you're looking at something like in Slayer, or Merciless, or Instinct even, Bolster, if you're looking to finish out the set, and you just need some pieces to fill it, the top row pieces work out very well. So what's actually my strategy a lot of times is I will, for sets that I really need just like a 4-piece bonus, I will put a pair of boots on, because speed is usually pretty easy to get, like a 6-star speed boot, for example. I don't really care so much what the subsets are, but if it's in something like, say, Bolster, for example, I'll throw a pair of these boots on. And then I'll just go top row pieces and try to make it work from the top row pieces, because I know most of the time I can find pieces in mismatched sets to make the glove and chest work, but I want those to be 6-star if at all possible. That's kind of what I do. I try to find 1 piece at the bottom and 3 pieces at the top when making a specific set work. If it's a set that like Savage, where I'm really pushing high damage and I want it to hit super hard, that'd be a little different. You could even come into the optimizer, use it to optimize your champions. Like I mentioned before with your dungeons, you can optimize your specific champions. So say you want Ithos to do as much damage as possible, but you want him to be 200 speed. Well, come in here, 200 speed, highest damage possible, and you go ahead and optimize him. Now give it a few minutes or whatever, and it'll show you what kind of gear needs to be equipped to him to do as much damage as possible. He's basically where he should be, but these are the champions you would need to be removing gear from. You can lock some champions, you can unlock some champions, but it's a very good way to come in here and equip your champions with the best stuff that's available already leveled up. Now, that's a big thing, is it's not going to tell you what's going to roll onto the pieces if you upgrade the levels. So if you have a bunch of, say, instinct gear that's not been leveled and you use the optimizer, well, the optimizer is not going to give you the magical rolls of these stats. So you do got to be careful with that. It's just showing you what's already rolled. So if you have a lot of unleveled gear in your account, you may want to learn how to build your champions, go through and level those specific pieces, because you can probably squeeze out more damage than what the optimizer is showing, or just level those pieces and then rerun the optimizer. So the next thing I want to talk about is, let's see, the gearing. We're talking about that already. The accessories. The accessories are similar to the artifacts in the fact that you want to keep a lot less 5-star than what you think. However, Slayer is super valuable. Like any Slayer piece is going to help you finish out the 4-piece. What it's going to unlock actually specifically is if you have 2 pieces of Slayer, so a ring and a necklace and a banner, a ring and a banner, whatever it may be, whatever combination it is. But if you have two of those in the accessory slot, that means now you can go 2 pieces up here and then 4 pieces of a different set. This unlocks the ability to get 4-piece Slayer, which gives you the turn meter boost by 5% for AoE attacks, but it also allows you to go for things like Relentless, or 4-piece Merciless, or 4-piece Provoke, or 4-piece, so many different things. That's not only for Slayer, it's also for things like Merciless. So if you have Merciless pieces in here, which I don't think he's doing Cursed City just yet, but Merciless pieces give you a chance to reduce the cooldown of a skill, also a chance to get extra turns at the 9-piece, but the 4-piece alone is very good for support champions in general. So when it comes to the bottom row accessories, 5-star, I'll keep them all the time because the set bonuses from those pieces are just so valuable. Now, if I get plenty of necklaces, rings, and banners, then it's okay, I can start selling more. But when it comes to just general spider stuff, for banners at 5-star, I typically sell majority of them, basically all of them, unless they have like a double roll, possibly in a faction where I really need the speed, but a triple roll speed, I'll keep that. Quad roll, of course, I'm keeping that. But majority of the banners, I'm just gonna get rid of. If they don't have speed at 5-star, I'm definitely gonna be selling those. Necklaces, they're much easier to sell at 5-star because if you're going for a damage dealer necklace, you're going to want a 6-star crit damage necklace. Compare this once again. 6-star crit damage right here, it's going to be 40 crit damage versus at 5-star, you're looking at crit damage of 33. So you're looking for your damage dealers to do more damage. 5-star, just not going to be where it's at. You're going to be farming so much spider. You should have plenty of crit damage necklaces at 6-star. And then when it comes to HP, it's on your support champions, you're going to want accuracy and resistance typically for that. Defense, similar thing. You're going to want a 6-star necklace whenever possible. Rings, a little bit different because you can get the HP, defense, and attack percentage substats. So if those roll very well and you're kind of hard off on jewelry or accessories, then you can keep those. But in general, you're going to be farming so much spider. You should really just try to filter out as much of the 5-star pieces as you can outside of the specific sets and start working towards the 6-star pieces specifically. Because a 6-star double or triple roll percentage stat is going to be much better than a 5-star. Granted, the 5-star double or triple is going to be better than a 6-star single. So keep that in mind. Well, now when we come over to the general suggestions, before we get into the Hydra suggestions, I want to talk about the general suggestions. Ice Golem is very important for Hydra. What Ice Golem does is it unlocks sets, Provoke and Cursed, that essentially fill the roles of other champions. So instead of bringing in, say, a Cantra to place your Provoke, you can bring in a Necmo and a Provoke set, and now he's going to do the role of the Cantra doing the Provoke. Now, granted, Cantra does bring some more stuff. She's still an amazing champion, but he's going to kind of fill that role. Instead of looking for a Hex champion, maybe you don't have any other Hex champions. Maybe in this account, you only have, let's see, Hex champions. You have 1 Hex champion. No Mithrala yet, I guess. So you have 1 Hex champion, for example, being the Archer. Well, you need another Hex champion. You need a Hex champion for different difficulties. So the best way to do that is just to go ahead and farm, get the Curse set, which is actually good now. Probably wasn't good whenever he played last, but now it's very good. So now you just have the curse set on there, throw it on somebody like Necmo, throw it on somebody who has a bunch of AoE skills, and now you're going to continually keep up the hex. You could throw it on Lydia. Lydia works well in your Doom Tower teams, your dungeon speedrunning teams, but also in Hydra in a curse set specifically. Now the shield set can be replaced onto somebody else in your dungeon teams and still give you that buff, no problem. Coming over here to the general suggestions, I wanted to focus a lot of this on Hydra. So before we get into Hydra, I said it again, dang it. Before we get into Hydra, I want to touch on the dungeons real quick. So Ice Golem, hard mode dungeon, Ice Golem specifically, HP burn is the way to go. If you don't have any good HP burner champion, don't worry about it. Normal Ice Golem, poisons can do amazing. They do amazing. Hard mode, they don't. So debuffs, burn, you want to get your burn champion to the boss. You have really no good burn champion right now, it looks like. You have Sishia, which could do well, actually. Sishia could definitely get to the boss. Dring could do well. So these two champions are the ones I'd be focusing on. Basically, get them to the boss, burn the boss, you're good to go. Don't have War Master, don't have any high crit damage stuff, no crit rate on these champions, because if they get slammed, they're probably going to die on these higher stages. But climb these stages, Ice Golem is going to be very important. Get to a stage where you're strong and you can handle. Bring a res champion. Duchess works out great. Champion who can cleanse works out great. Elva's work out great. I don't know if you have one of those though. Let's see. Buffs. We're going to go block debuffs. So Siphi works out great. Basically, what I think of it as is escorting my burn champions to the boss. They get to the boss, keep them alive, and you're good to go, basically. Moving over to the next area, let's talk about Spider real quick. So Spider is going to be one that's pretty easy once you get the hang of it, once you understand what's working. With Spider, we're going to want to kill the little spiderlings because on hard mode, they do damage to the big spider. This is actually a pretty good team. If you had a champion in here who could place Hex on all the little spiderlings, this team would be golden. Like, it'd be perfect. Actually, you do. Let's see if I could do that real quick. So with the setup here, we could do Archer. Archer could go first. You could do the number 1 on the rapid shot, the placing Hex on everything. We could see what the Kymar setup is currently. Let's see, Kymar 240. This is 265. I really want somebody going faster than the Kymar. Let's see what these Siphi speeds are. So Siphi, the reason why I want somebody to go first is because I want somebody to boost the turn meter for everybody, but I also want more spiralings to drop. So ideally, Archer would be going a little bit later in the turn order. We got Kymar to reset everything. Lydia and Hex could be good. We don't really need the decreased defense and weaken. We could do 2 Cold Hearts potentially. If we had somebody do like multiple max HP hits, it'd be fantastic. I know the 2 Cold Hearts were used in some other areas earlier, so maybe I can just throw those in. Yumiko works out fantastic as well. You really want to make sure your champions actually survive though, so you may need some champs to, give you some extra support and such. Let's see, Seer can work also, but she just strips all the buffs from everybody, so she gets a little bit, a little bit risky with what she does. Sishia can work out fantastic as well if you invest in her. The HP burn is fantastic for this area. A little bit slow on the speed on that one. Let's see what this one's like, 175. So a little bit slow on both of them. If they're booked out, that could be okay. But if you go HP burn method, you got to make sure you do it and then activate it, because if not, it's going to be kind of weird because they're going to be burnt and then they're going to die from the Hex. So the strategies work well. They just don't necessarily work out amazing together. Cold Hearts are both pretty good. This one's a little bit slower than I'd like. But let's go ahead and try this out real quick. So we'll open with that with Kymar and then prioritize this. Just see how this works. Just a real quick spider idea. Essentially, we're not doing no turn meter reduction. Hard mode spider, you already know that because you've pushed up to stage 6 hard, so you understand that. But hard mode spider, having Hex on these little spiderlings is going to be just probably the thing that makes the difference for you. 2 Cold Heart Seekers, boom, almost kills the little spiderlings. All the spiderlings are dead. We get the big breath from that spider right there. Now the Kymar is going to reset, I hope. May have to have the Cold Hearts open with a different skill because they're about to do the big sink the damage into this. Unfortunately, she does the Hex. There's some spiders taking some damage. Now she's going to eat the spiderlings, I think, here because of how everything worked out. We do get her pretty low on HP. If we could get a champion to do a little bit more damage from the... We could use a Septimus possibly. Septimus could work out great. This should work out fine. But if you had a Sishia in here, you could speed tune her to do the HP burn. Go ahead and activate the burn on the spiderlings. We might need to adjust this a little bit, obviously, because this failed. This was just a real quick team I threw together. But you can see the effect of, okay, we had the max HP hit. That hits the big spider with the Cold Hearts max HP stuff. And then the little spiderlings die, which does big damage to the big spider. This may actually work out fine and may actually get the win here still because Archer has so much damage from her AoE stuff. Super cool. Very close. If the spider does another hit, though, we're dead. Unless Cold Heart's able to do a Heart Seeker. Actually, no. Actually, Archer's kind of soloing this, honestly. I kind of want to make this successful just so I can look decent. Like, oh, hey, Hyraku threw a team together and actually worked on Spider. I don't know if it's going to work, though. We'll see. Just a few more seconds. The Spider ate the Spiderlings just then, didn't she? I hope she did. If she did, then we're fine. We have to kill the Spiderlings to make this one a victory, make this one successful. Okay, yeah, it's over now. All right, either way, though, hopefully you can understand what I was doing there. The Aurora Guard could actually possibly do better than the Cold Hearts on the affinity stages. That actually makes sense, because if it's weak affinity, then he's not going to do very good. But what he brings that's different than the Cold Heart is that he does damage to all the Spiderlings. Same thing as Husk, but they both do damage to all the little Spiderlings, so it's easier to kill them. Seer can work in this. You just got to be careful about her stripping the buffs. Various different damage dealers can work very well here, but it's essentially just max HP to the boss, HP burn, kill the little Spiderlings, have Hex to contribute to the damage as well. Once again, you can come to the Hell Hades Optimizer and see what teams work out there. Dragon's Lair, I wouldn't worry about farming this too much, honestly. Dragon's Lair is just not what it used to. You would do a ton of dragon farming. Nowadays, we don't do it because we have Perception gear. It's amazing from Faction Wars, and outside of like 3x speed events, I just don't recommend farming dragon. Like, the gear you're going to get from Fire Knight, Spider, and Ice Golem is so much more valuable, and even your energy into Sand Devil is so much more valuable. Don't stress on dragon too much, but dragon, poison is going to be like the main thing you go to here. Poisons, activate the poisons, you're going to be good. Stoutus is an amazing champion if you have him. I don't think he has Stoutus apparently, but poisons, Dark Kale is a very good champion for dragon. You'll get him from Doom Tower very soon if you don't already have him. Speaking of, let's see if he actually has him yet. He does not, but he's 2 champions away, so we'll get him very soon. So Dark Kale, one to look out for dragon. Even Yumiko. Yumiko just sends back the stuff for the dragon anyway, so she's an incredible champion for this. Coming over to Fire Knight. Fire Knight's an area where it's definitely worth pushing up. Into hard mode is going to be difficult, though, because to be honest, you don't have the #1 champion for this. You can still do this. It's okay. You can probably get to 6 hard, no problem. Well, not no problem, just a little bit less problem. Maybe not even 6 hard, honestly. It may just be worth staying at 25, because what you have to do with Fire Knight is ally attacks, break the shield, max HP hits. You got to kill the Fire Knight pretty quickly or else you can get smacked. Without Newt, it's a little bit more difficult. If 25 normal isn't super challenging, I may even just stay there. I mean, you get mythicals on these stages, but it may not be worth your energy to dive a ton into just yet, because you're doing it so fast on normal, and hard mode's probably going to be like 3 minutes or more. So it's like 3 times this current length that your runs are taking. Either way, moving on to Sand Devil. Sand Devil is one that is very, very important. Do you have Godseeker? All right, you do. You do, in fact, have Godseeker. Start looking out for her 5-star soul. Start buying 1-star souls in the shop. You probably want her on your wish list, honestly, because she is, in fact, a champion who will be the key. Geoman, this is a pretty good lineup here. But if you get a 5-star Godseeker, she will make Sand Devil so much easier for you. You do have Siphi, so you could actually, no, you don't have the key champions to make this a speed team. But climbing through this becomes a million times easier with Godseeker and good regeneration gear from Fire Knight. So your current regeneration gear, let's see how it looks just real quick. Sand Devil is like, it's a pain to climb without Godseeker. You have Walking Tomb Dring, so you have some good setups there. And you can do Sand Devil without Godseeker being 5-star. It just makes it a little more challenging, because when she's lower than 5-star, she has to be like 271 speed for stage 25. And it just makes it more difficult to have the regeneration gear that's that good. So look out for the 5-star soul. Start buying that. Start buying the lower souls as you see them pop up in your shop, without a doubt. Once you get 5-star, it's going to be more than easy. So until then, I would work on farming Ice Golem and Fire Knight and Spider. Focus on these 3 dungeons. You get your stage up to hard mode, stage 9 or 10. Either one's fine, depending on your affinity. Spider, stage 10 is pretty easy. So do all 3 of these. Get them pushed up. Dump a good amount of energy into those stages. And then start working on Sand Devil once your gear, and more likely Godseeker, actually makes sense to do so. Now, I want to talk about Hydra, because Hydra is something that he really was focused on questions about. We're about 20, almost 30 minutes into this video, so I figured now is the best time to talk about Hydra. So if you're interested in Hydra, here we go. So my opinion with Hydra, I may have missed some stuff here, but you're going to need to focus on these buffs and debuffs. So for debuffs, decrease speed. They get less turns. You essentially get more turns. It's better. Provoke. The Head of Decay does the cleanse. You want to provoke it as much as possible. This can be a provoke set or provoke champion. Archer, game changer. Brings in so many things. I'm going to talk about that in a minute, though. Hex, this allows you to target the Head of Mischief. This also shares the damage from the other heads into the heads with Hex. So you're just making your damage, you're multiplying your damage so much. Hex is very much needed, especially if you want to push an easier 1 key or a higher damage key. Block buffs is very, very important. Block buffs allows you to not have to worry about the Head of Wrath getting the increased attack, the Head of Mischief stealing your buffs and spreading them. Block buffs, whether it's from Ugo or Uko, either one is great. Decrease defense and weaken. This basically allows you to have a run that doesn't take forever. Decrease defense and weaken are super important, super valuable. Definitely want to bring those if possible. Lydia is an amazing option for that. She brings decreased defense and weaken plus increased speed, which is a buff we're about to talk about. So increased speed is very important. Increased attack and or defense. As far as buffs, there's not a whole lot of them that are like required, in my opinion, compared to debuffs. So things like block debuffs is good to have, but it can also be stolen and spread and kind of ruin your run. There's various different buffs that are good to have, but outside of increased speed and increased attack or defense, the reason why I say attack or defense is because your nukers, you're going to want increased attack if they're attack-based. Your defense-based damage dealers, you're going to want increased defense. Your entire team can benefit from increased defense. Your entire team doesn't necessarily benefit from increased attack, though. So having some support stuff, increased defense, strengthen, things like that are very, very helpful. Shields, those are all very helpful, though it does make things a little bit tricky if you're trying to have a mischief tank, specifically shields. Shields are typically what you use to make the Head of Mischief target your mischief tank. If you're using like Inquisitor Shamel, using a blood shield accessory, it gives him a shield every turn. But if you have somebody casting a shield, well, that shield just gets ignored essentially because now you have shields on everybody. So your Inquisitor Shamel doesn't have one extra buff compared to everybody else. So for the buffs you need, increased speed, increased attack, actually kind of and increased defense, assuming you have attack-based damage dealers. Defense may even be more valuable to make your team actually survive, that is. And then a mischief tank, which is somebody who has more buffs than everybody else. So the most buffs on the team, they have high resistance, and then ideally 2 damage dealers. So freeing a champ isn't a problem. One of the struggles for a lot of players is the champion gets eaten. Now you're just out of luck because you have nobody who can free them. If you have a lot of champions with AoE attacks that have War Master, then it's easier to free the champions. But if you don't have that, then it gets very difficult to actually free your champions. Support and res champions, your Siphi is an amazing champion. She hits a lot of these, and she has a res. And then a way to deal with the Head of Torment. So Veil, Shamel, Siphi, or heavy cleanses are like Doom Priest, cleanses every turn. Tahanarok cleanses every turn. Mithrala plus like a few other cleansers, it can kind of work as well. It's best to have Shamel, Veil, or Siphi. Veil can be Duchess, Veil can be from Rector Drath. Different champions have it. But let's go ahead and build a team as an example. You could also come over here to Hellhaze Optimizer, another great place to see what teams to do for your Hydra stuff. So we come over here to Hydra Rotation 6, I believe is what we're on currently. Speaking of, I want to run a new key on Hydra Rotation 6, and it resets in 19 hours. Great. And so for Hydra Rotation 6, we're going to see what this is real quick. The teams that suggested for Nightmare, I like to look for Nightmare teams because if you have the champions for Nightmare, you can scale it down to Brutal and it's going to do fine. But you really want to build with the higher difficulties in mind a lot of times. We're going to exclude manual teams. If there's nothing shown here, I'll show you what's going to work very well for you. So these teams aren't really crazy high damage. Let me throw one together. So when you're building these teams, you're going to want to try to get as many of the debuffs and buffs that I mentioned into the team. So we're going to be looking for champions who bring as many of these as possible in one champion. For example, Archer, she brings decreased speed on her A2. She brings Provoke and Hex. She also has some like increased turn meter, but a lot of extremely valuable stuff. So Archer, without a doubt, is 100% going in the team. Now, something you want to keep in mind is if we're using Inquisitor Shamel, Inquisitor Shamel cleanses the fear placed by the Head of Torment and then boosts your leader spot's turn meter. So whatever champ you have in this leader spot is a champion who's going to be taking a lot of turns. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and throw Inquisitor Shamel in the back because I know he's going to go there. Put him in the back. Boom. Easy. So the champion in the front, we want to make sure the champion who's either going to do a lot of damage or bring a ton of support. You'll see a lot of neck modes in the front spot because of the turn meter boosting, the increased speed, all the debuffs he brings. He's a very valuable champion. He brings Leech, which is very valuable for keeping your team alive. But for this situation, we're going to use Archer in the first spot. She may not be the best option for the first spot, but she brings so much stuff that you're basically more than secure with the heals from the Archer because they're passive. You're more than secure with the Provoke, the Hex. The decreased speed is going to stay up all the time as well. So Archer is a fantastic champion to have in this lead spot. Now we're looking for, we have the Provoke, we have the Hex, we have the somewhat damage from Archer because she's in a damage dealer build, but the Hex is really going to add so much to damage. We need some block buffs. So for block buffs, we're going to come in here. I've given up on not saying so. For block buffs, we're going to see what champions you have for this. Lydia doesn't really count, to be honest, because Lydia is just single target block buffs. You have an Ugo. Ugo right here, she is so good because she brings a block buffs plus a decreased defense and a heal and a cleanse, a soft cleanse. So you have a level 61, get her fully booked, of course, but we're going to go ahead and throw her in there. Now, I'm not going to throw her in there with Archer. I want to throw her in the back because if Archer was to get eaten, The champion in the second spot is going to be the champion who's getting the Terminator boost. I don't want Ugo to get the Terminator boost. She doesn't really bring anything that needs it. So I'm going to fill in the champion spots. I'm going to throw in Ugo back here, wherever Ugo's at, and I'm just going to open these up. So now we need maybe a support champion, maybe a res. We have a champion here who does decent damage. He's a defense-based champion. But a champion like Sify could be valuable. But to be honest, I don't know if we'd need her because I would kind of like Sify to go into one of your other teams. What I like to do, you have 2 Sifys actually, so maybe we could use them both in the same team. But I prefer to not shove all your top OP champions into one team because then you start getting into, well, now I have nothing for my brutal, nothing for my hard team, but instead have, 2 or 3 teams that still 1 key, but maybe they don't do as much damage as they could, but they're still getting you the 1 key damage that you're looking for. So now we're looking for some more damage dealing options. We already have a block buffs. We have a decreased defense from Ugo as well. Getting her in like relentless. The gearing I'm not going to talk about here because it's just going to be way too long to actually talk about that. But let's look at some other stuff we're looking for. So we have block buffs, we have hex, we have provoke, we have decreased speed, we have decreased defense and weaken. So we have the main debuffs already checked off the list. So now we want increased speed, increased attack, and or increased defense. So who's going to bring increased attack and or increased defense? Well, we know who's going to bring increased defense. That's Sify. Sify brings an increased defense. Easy. No problem whatsoever right there. She also brings increased speed. So 2 things in 1 champion right there, which is fantastic. So we'll go ahead and throw in a Sify. I don't want her to be boosted necessarily first, so we'll throw her right there. You have 2 Sifys. It's okay to put her in this team. If you didn't have her, or once you get Mithrala could go in this team very well, honestly, because she brings increased attack, increased defense. She brings a shield, which Inquisitor Shamel hopefully is going to be a mischief tank, which to do that, we're going to want to take him and put him in a blood shield ring. And where can I find him? There we go. A blood shield ring, ideally. No relentless stuff necessarily, because you want him to be slower. You want him to have blood shield ring. If you have it, if you don't, it's okay. We can go a different route. There is no blood shield ring in the account, so we could find a different champion to be a mischief tank. Obro could do it. If you really want to, just make sure your block buff stays up all the time. Maybe have a strip champion, and you don't necessarily need a mischief tank. It is nice to have though because the Terminator steal is very frustrating. But Obro could be a mischief tank. Any champion who places extra buffs on themselves or self-buffing is very good for mischief tanks. I don't want to necessarily throw Obro in here because she's not like a OP champion who we really need to fit in this team. I don't see anybody right off the bat. You could also just do a champion who's like Oella, who brings increased resistance and just make everybody a mischief tank. So everybody has plenty of resistance in the team, for example. But let's assume you get a blood shield ring eventually in the future for your Inquisitor Shamel. That's what we're going to play around for a moment. Shamrock's a really good champion as well for Hydra, honestly. Brings a lot of buffs, brings a good AoE decreased speed, but you don't need him in this team. Let's get back on track here and focus. So now we're looking for another damage dealer. Who's going to be a very good damage dealer? Tila is a very actually good damage dealer. Now, she does bring some stuff that's already overlapped with Archer, though. She brings a Hex, a Leech, HP Burn, so we're not going to use her, because if we did, the Hex is already used, HP Burn's nice, but guess what? We have another champion who does HP Burn in Sishia. Sishia brings HP Burn. She also brings decreased defense and a weaken. So now we have a champion who brings a weaken on the A2. We have a decreased defense from Ugo. We have HP Burns, which are very good in case Poison Cloud was to get placed. We have Archer, we have Sishia, we have Sify, Ugo, and Shamel. You could use a Duchess here, drop Shamel, drop Sify. Duchess could be your Veil champion, but with Relentless Gear, it makes it a little bit tricky because Duchess won't keep up the Veil all the time. So now what we're going to do is just an idea. We're going to look for a champion who brings increased attack in here. So buffs, increased attack, because having it on Sishia is going to be helpful, though it's not needed. If we can't get it, not a huge deal, because Sishia's main damage comes from her burns anyways, so I don't really want to force that into the team. We do have two damage dealers as it is. We'll kind of have 3, honestly. Shamel can be built for damage, but having in mind we build him for mischief tanking, he's not going to be doing that much damage. Sishia does quite a bit of damage. Archer can do some decent damage, but she's going to be definitely contributing to the damage pool. What you could do here is have a champion like Geomancer. I know you used him in a previous team. Now, this actually sounds good, but you got to get rid of the Sishia in this case, because Sishia will actually cause Geomancer's burns to not really work the way you hope them to. So what I actually might rather see is something like this. Geomancer in the lead, and then we have Archer in the second spot, and then the next spot we have Lydia. So Lydia can be here. Lydia's going to do decreased defense and weaken. She's also going to bring the increased speed, which the Sishia also, the Sify also brings increased speed. So we're kind of getting some overlapping buffs here, but what Lydia is going to allow is for the weaken to be out there. The weaken is going to allow us to do a little bit more damage. We can use some different champions. Let's see whatever. So there was some husks and royal guards being used. It really depends on what your gear level is once we go through this. If you are able to get a husk in here, it's a fantastic champion. He's going to be doing great max HP damage and really a very solid option. He doesn't scale based off of any other thing besides max HP, enemies max HP, so you don't have to worry about having no increased attack. Geomancer doesn't care about having increased attack. Increased defense is great for all these champions. A very tanky team. This team, when built correctly, can one-key Brutal without a doubt. Can one-key Nightmare, I'm sure, as well, as long as they're built tanky enough. It'd be Geomancer and maybe something like Reflex to get more of these A3 abilities. Archer and Relentless, she's already built well. Husk, and actually he's built pretty well also. You actually may be good to go, except for Ugo. Get her fully booked. She is fully booked. This actually may be a pretty good team right off the bat, actually. So the stuff's actually built pretty decent. Turn this off. Turn this on. Archer, 1-2. Husk, prioritize this. Don't really need the provoke from him because on the A1. We'll turn off the A3 though because the provoke's nice to have if you do get it, but Archer's providing the provoke. Sify is pretty fast. She's built well. What I do with Ugo is prioritize the heal and then here on that and then Shamel. There we go. So the team's going to be good. You just got to be careful with the Head of Mischief because the Head of Mischief could actually kind of mess you up. And Geomancer will need to most likely be single targeting the heads. Like you have to click them because he sometimes places the HP burn on decapitated heads and like some weird stuff. So don't always worry about trusting his actual skills to work because they get kind of weird. But this team will definitely work on Brutal. I believe it should work on Nightmare as well. And if your gearing's correct, which it actually looks pretty good, then you can actually probably try Nightmare this week. So depending on the sets, will depend on how well it actually works out. Now for your next team, I'm not going to go through and build a whole other one. You have a few Shamels. Honestly, a few Shamels is great. Like if you have 3, you probably can use them on all your teams. The next team is going to be Shamel in the back. And then for the lead spot, you're looking for a champion who does a Hex. You're looking for champions that do various different things. You don't have a Hex champion. Well, your Lydia, like earlier I mentioned, throw her in a Hex set. Now all of a sudden you do have a Hex from Lydia. Not as consistent uptime as Archer, but still very solid. And then for a Provoke champion, let's see what you have here. Provoke is something that's very good if you can make sure it stays up all the time. But if you can't make sure it has very high uptime, then it's not amazing. Did you have a Krisk in here? You do have a Krisk. Yeah, so Krisk, amazing champion. Very easy champion to slot in. Not necessarily who I would have in the very first spot, but Krisk. Boom. Fantastic option here. And then Shamel in the back, boosting into, or Shamel possibly, or you can even have a Duchess. Have a Duchess in here for the Veil, and then a different team down here at the bottom. But Krisk is a very good core champion to have for your second Hydra team because he brings 2 AoE skills. You could technically put him in Curse set. He brings Provoke. He brings this stuff, the decreased speed, the ally protection and continuous heal. He's a very good mischief tank, so having him high resistance plus high accuracy looks like he's actually in a build that's very much like that right now. You probably can't do that plus have Cursed, but if you could have him in Cursed, plus high resistance, plus high accuracy, when all of a sudden you have a mischief tank, a decreased speed, you have a increased speed champion somewhat. He doesn't do it to himself, unfortunately. You have just a lot of roles stuffed into one champion. I want him right there because I do want the first 2 champions to be boosted, and then I want him to place the decreased attack and decreased defense as early as possible, protecting the people behind him. But there's various different champions you could use here. I personally like Inquisitor Shamel over relying on Duchess's Veil because sometimes it doesn't really have perfect uptime in my experience. Shamel is just so much easier to make it work on the Head of Torment. But if you need some more support champions, then Duchess works amazing. She brings a team res, consistent Veil, increased attack. So in some teams, it makes the most sense to actually bring Duchess. And it's not a problem whatsoever. In this team, though, I'd probably use something like Sishia, and then possibly a Lydia as well in the team. And then Shamel in the back, maybe another Sify, possibly. Maybe even you want to throw Duchess in here. Maybe it's Duchess now. But Sishia will be getting extra turns, so she's going to be outside of the Veil pretty often. So something to be mindful of there. Maybe you do Shamel number 2 down here. I think I'm actually basically like building out all these teams now. We have 1 spot in the lead. We have a lot of stuff with Krisk. Now we're going to go ahead and say, okay, who's the other damage dealer we're going to use? We want somebody else to do some damage. Somebody like Husk and Royal Guard, or even another Geomancer could be fantastic for this lead. Just kidding. Not Geo because you have Sishia. So no Geo there. Attila could be decent. If you don't have a Hex set for Krisk, Attila brings Hex. She brings Leech, which is very helpful. Continuous heals on all allies for 2 turns, which actually could make Krisk's tanking the Mischief Head not so consistent because he does continuous heal, which is what helps him out so much Looking at these champs, we could do a Husk. Husk could actually be very solid in this team, honestly. I would maybe have him behind Sishia. And then, honestly, since you have attack-based champion here, it may not even be a bad idea to run a Duchess in this team, possibly. Or Arbiter is good. If this is like a Brutal team, this may work on Brutal. You have Arbiter as long as she's tanky. Could probably be perfectly fine. You don't have increased defense. You have Strengthen from Lydia. You have increased defense on Krisk specifically. But you have to obviously come in here, mess with your teams. This is just like a quick little example. But you do definitely have one key options for Nightmare/Brutal, and then Brutal/Hard, and then Hard or Normal, whichever one you want to do. So that was a big breakdown on Hydra there. Hopefully that last 15 minutes actually helps you guys out watching. But that's kind of my thought process when going through Hydra. Obviously, this was a much more sped up version. And when it comes to actual gearing, it's a much more deep dive into the account, dive into the champions, so on and so forth. But going to the optimizer is something I like to do. I always do exclude manual teams. I don't like manual in Hydra. There's some teams that do more damage on manual, but auto is just what I do. And these teams are really good for sure. Speaking of, the one I did for Brutal doesn't have block buffs, so I do need to do that. This one, I wouldn't even, actually, I'm going to delete this team. Don't use this one as an example because I don't have the block buffs in the team. It's not set up perfectly. There are some things that's missing. If you don't have block buffs, it could be okay. Bring a strip champion. But you do really want to make sure you have block buffs, or at least some answer for that. Umbral is very good for block buffs, actually. Turn off the A3, just use the A2. Very consistent block buffs for 3 turns. King Galkabar, I haven't used him enough in Hydra to say how good he is, but it's a AoE for 1 turn, so I can't guarantee it's great. Either way, Umbral is definitely very solid for the job. Lydia is not for the block buff job, but Umbral definitely gets a thumbs up from me. So with that, you would have to be mindful. With these teams, just be careful because while these ones are the best in the optimizer for your account that's been logged, that doesn't mean the people with these champions plus Archer they don't have Archer, right? None of these teams have Archer. Archer is definitely going to be one of the best champions for you, like period in this. She's going to be incredible. She might be here though. No, she's not anywhere. So actually she is there, 56 million. But it does take a little bit of, inspiration from the optimizer plus actually gain knowledge and lay out your teams. Build this one. This one should work out well for you. Either way, guys, hopefully y'all could take something from that video. It was a pretty long account takeover, pretty long dive into various different areas of the game. I didn't dive into the gearing too much of the account though, because in general, the champions seem to be built pretty well. I mean, we have good speeds. We have decent damage on the damage dealers who need it. The Rotos is actually pretty decent as well. More defense ignore would be great. But in general, these stats are pretty good. Could use some more HP, but overall, it's a very solid build. So, guys, thank you all very much for watching. Zixra, thank you very much for allowing me to do this takeover and the coaching and share it with everybody else. You did tell me to pull some of your prisms, so I'll go ahead and open up some of these real quick for you. Let's see. We have, we guys make some space, apparently. We got some space to be made, and then we'll pull some of these prisms. I think I need one more space. Either way, let's go ahead and pull one, see what it gets here. Hopefully, it's something amazing. Hopefully, it is. Okay, we got a Epic there. Let's make sure that he hasn't messaged me back or anything. Okay, he did. Wow, I'm getting spammed on Discord. Wow. So, okay. We got 1. Jump into the next one. 2. Okay. Ashna. Not really Ashma. I don't know how I say her name. 3. And maybe I'll let him pull the 4th one because I'm not getting anything from this. But Doom Priest is a very good champion. Could be used in Hydra. I don't think he needs her for Hydra, but a very good champion for Hydra nonetheless. We're going to throw one more champion in the vault there. I think he has 2 Yumikos, so the potential for his account is crazy. And the last Prism Shard, still nothing. Oh, Geo! That's actually a really good pull. Very, very, very good pull, actually. Could be used in a lower difficulty without any problems whatsoever. But there we go, guys. Thank you all very much for watching. I love and appreciate all of you. Hopefully you enjoy this video. Hopefully it helps you out. And I'll catch you all in the next one.